There's this thing happening where things are getting more minimal. It seems to be almost like an S-curve of minimalism, where first people were going from chaos to minimalism. So they started with very ornate things, and then they got more simple and minimal. And now it feels like we're going from minimalism back to chaos again. I think a good example of this is looking at phones. When we had the iPhone 4, this was a beautiful object. We had this very clear vision of what we wanted a phone to look like, and it looked like that. And then there was this progression where we added more colors, we made it bigger. And recently, there's been a movement towards making these phones even more maximalist. You have fun colors again. You have crazy cases that make them very big. You have all sorts of add-ons like this. You have the iPhone 12 and 13, where Apple tried to experiment with color again. And then there's the 14, where it's all about this massive camera bump and experimenting with different colors for that camera bump. It's moving away from minimalism and embracing maximalism again, and I feel like this is happening in many other areas of design as well. You can see this shift from minimalism back to embracing maximalism again. And the question that I want to pose in this video is, why is this happening, and is this something that's potentially dangerous for our creativity? The first reason why I think we re-seeing this shift is because maybe we reached peak minimalism and we running out of ways to be more minimal. There are only so many ways that you can play around with white boxes until you kind of exhausted every single possibility. And maybe we've reached that point. Maybe we need to start exploring again. The second reason is that with technology, it's easy to embrace minimalism because you have a bunch of features that you can hide from the user. You can have a very stripped down experience because you can actually have all of these features available, but just not showing them. So as technology gets better and better, it becomes easier and easier to hide more and more stuff. So we can easily go into this direction of having everything and then stripping it down to the essentials. But if we keep doing that and we keep stripping away all of these features and all of this complexity, eventually you get to the point where you don't have anything left and you left with just pure functionality. And maybe we've reached that point with the iPhone 4. That was an incredibly minimal design. That was the absolute core of what an iPhone needed to be. And it's hard to imagine how we could go much more minimal than that. And maybe we've reached a similar point with other areas of design as well. The third reason is that maybe we've realized that minimalism isn't always the best approach. But in some areas, adding more stuff actually improves the user experience. A good example of this is in music production. If you look at the evolution of Ableton Live, this was one of the earlier versions, and it was very minimal. It was very hard to use. It didn't have any samples. You had to do everything yourself. Now, look at the latest version of Ableton Live. There's thousands of presets, thousands of sounds, tons of samples, tons of things that are just built in for you to use. And I think that's an improvement. I think that's better for the user. You can create way more with it. Of course, it's less minimal, but I think that's a good thing. And maybe we're realizing that in other areas as well. Maybe sometimes adding more stuff makes things better. The fourth reason why I think we're seeing this shift is because maybe we're simply bored. We've gone through this period of time where we explored minimalism, and we kind of understood it, and we know how to use it, and we know how to manipulate it, and maybe it's not exciting anymore. Maybe we need something new to spark our creativity again, and I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing this shift. The fifth reason why I think we re-seeing this shift is because there's this thing happening where things are getting more futuristic. You see this in movies, you see this in architecture, you see this in fashion. People are wearing clothes that look like they're from the future. You see this in tech as well, with wearables and all sorts of other stuff. And that's also driving this shift away from minimalism and towards futurism. So what I mean by futurism is that we re-seeing this in architecture a lot, where we have these sleek, experimental forms that push the boundaries of what's possible with new materials. 3D printing with digital innovation. All these new technologies are allowing us to create buildings that look like they're from the future, and I think that's really exciting. I think that's pushing the boundaries of creativity. It's allowing us to create things that we never thought were possible before. But it does beg the question of whether or not this is something that's elitist and exclusive. Whether or not only the wealthy will be able to afford this type of architecture, this type of futurism in their homes. And the answer is probably yes. But I think that's okay. I think that's fine. I think it's important to push the boundaries of what's possible. You have to start somewhere. You have to start with experimentation, and then over time, as the technology matures and as the techniques get better and better, then it trickles down to the mainstream. This is how most innovation works. You start with something very expensive and very exclusive, and then over time it becomes more affordable and more accessible. Futurism in architecture is pushing the boundaries of what's possible. It's challenging the status quo. It's questioning how a building can be more than just a shelter from the elements. It's pushing the boundaries of what a building can be. It's exploring new materials, new technologies, new forms, all in the pursuit of creating something that's never been created before. It's also really interesting to see how this futurism in architecture is playing out against the backdrop of climate change. We're in this really unique moment in history where we're facing unprecedented challenges, but we also have unprecedented opportunities to create. How do we reconcile those two things? How do we create these amazing buildings that push the boundaries of what is possible, while also being mindful of the impact that we're having on the planet? I don't have the answers to those questions, but I think it's a really interesting conversation to be having. And the final reason why I think we're re-seeing this shift is because maybe we've come to the realization that life is too short to be minimal. Maybe we want to add more color, more joy, more beauty to our lives. Maybe we want to surround ourselves with things that inspire us and excite us. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we should embrace the messiness and the complexity of life instead of trying to simplify it all the time. In conclusion, I think we're seeing a shift away from minimalism and towards something more maximalist, more futuristic, more joyful. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a sign of creativity, a sign of progress, a sign that we're evolving as humans. But let me know what you think. Do you think minimalism is dead? Is it boring? Do you think we need something new? Or do you think minimalism is still relevant? Do you think there's still room to explore it more? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.